Welcome. This is Breathe California TV. My name is Terry Trumbull. I'm a volunteer. Been doing the TV show for Breathe California weekly here for over 20 years. Thank you very much for joining us. Breathe California is the lung health organization for the state. We have 6 different chapters. Last year, just here in this county, our chapter helped 150,000 people with breathing difficulties. But our show's focus is on preventing damage to your health. And we have 2 speakers today who are going to help us with this. Sammy Boutros is going to offer us different ways to handle transportation. And Derek Satterlee is going to talk to us about some alternative ways of coming up with energy. See you in 30 seconds.
It's given me a chance to go out and be with people who has the same problem. And it helps you to manage your life better too, because you hear different things from each person, and it's just been really helpful in many ways.
Welcome back to Breathe California TV. My name is Terry Trumbull. I chair the Environmental Health Committee of Breathe California. What that means in English is we're trying to prevent damage to your lungs, particularly critical in the Bay Area where we're breathing unhealthy air, and for that matter, so are 95% of the people in California. So Derek Satterlee and Sammy Boutros are going to talk for the next 25 minutes about ways that we can reduce the damage to our lungs and what we're doing. Gentlemen, welcome. So Sammy, somehow or other, you're going to tell us that algae has something to do with transportation.
Algae can be used as a biofuel. What algae is, they are microorganisms that grow in water. They photosynthetic organisms, so they utilize sunlight and atmospheric carbon and the water that they grow in. And if we can manage to cultivate these organisms, we can harness their capabilities to essentially produce biofuels and ethanols, and just as an alternative to the conventional oil.
So explain biofuels to me. How would that fit in as an alternative to gasoline?
Well, typically ethanol is the most common form, and there's renewable fuel standards that the EPA has set forth to have a certain concentration of biofuels within conventional transportation fuels. So the idea is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with that. And the good thing about algae is that they are carbon neutral, in the sense that they utilize atmospheric carbon, they sequester it, and then when they're burned in the fuel tank, then they're able to again release it and then take it back in when they continue to cultivate it.
So we're using a lot of ethanol now, but it's mostly from corn. How would algae be better than corn?
Well, according to McKay, he is the author of Sustainable Energy Without the Hot Air, and his findings...
Hot air is what this show is all about.
Okay. His findings actually say that algae offers 4 watts per meter squared. So essentially, that's more bang per meter squared than corn. His findings based on corn is that it's 0.02 watts per meter squared, which is far less, an orders of magnitude less from algae.
Well, and presumably, while algae might be able to be used for food, corn, we know, makes excellent food, and we've been diverting it to make ethanol.
Yeah, exactly. And so algae, it's not a staple food source. So we don't have the problem of utilizing that as a food. So we can substitute whatever corn we're making for ethanol, use algae instead, and we don't have this fight between, do I want to fuel my tank or eat?
Absolutely. So I think of algae as growing anywhere. Is that where we would produce algae for commercial use?
Well, it can grow anywhere where there's water present. You can use it to grow in the oceans. You can use it to grow, I mean, anywhere where there's water. So you can essentially, create a station where they put water there, and then they can cultivate the algae there. And there's a multitude of ways. So instead of putting them out horizontally on a plane surface, you can actually place them vertically, and they can cultivate that way as well. And then you can also integrate them into a wastewater systems. And algae essentially, not only can they be used for fuel, but then they clean the water as well before it's put back.
Yeah, off air, Derek and I were talking about Arcata, where they have a wonderful sewage treatment system that relies on the plants and wetlands. So you could take a sewage treatment plant and run the remnants of it through an algae plant, and it would be safe to use?
Yeah, definitely. They utilize whatever wastewater systems, and they filter it and they clean it, and then when it's discharged, it's cleaner than when it was when it came back. And that way, you're not utilizing fresh water to grow these algae. You can utilize the wastewater that no one would otherwise want to use, or you can also cultivate it in the ocean.
Well, I know you're a genius, but somebody must have thought of this before. What's kind of been the history with cultivating algae?
Well, it was abandoned around the mid 90s, 1996 roughly, due to the decreased prices of oil. But then the idea was again revisited when oil was over $140 a barrel back in 2007, 2008. So that also spawned ESA, which is the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, which also mandated increases in renewable fuel standards. So they're requiring more biofuels to be integrated into the transportation fuels that we use today.
So what do you mean by renewable fuel standards? You mentioned it earlier as well.
So renewable fuel standards are basically mandated by the EPA that the fuels that we use today, so such gasoline and diesel, that they are required to have a minimum amount of renewable fuels, of biodiesel or ethanol, that are essentially mixed in with the gasoline and the diesel.
And what's the idea behind that compared to gasoline from Saudi Arabia? What are they trying to accomplish with the renewable standard?
Reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with the transportation sector. In California, 2010 in California, we emitted 447 megatons of carbon, and 38% of that was constituted to just the transportation sector alone. So we're really trying to get those emission standards down. Or trying to get emissions down, standards up, so that way we can all just breathe cleaner and reduce the human cause effect of global climate change.
So there's some downside to growing algae. I mean, for example, we're trying to phase out all the salt ponds in the bay. Would growing algae in the bay be a good idea, or is it too shallow?
Well, algae have to grow at the surface of the water because they utilize sunlight as well. So it could potentially be an option there to cultivate algae there.
But it's more likely in the ocean just because of the depth.
Yeah, I mean you can do it. The ocean is also as a place where it's not necessarily as useful to us. There's no shortage of salt water.
Absolutely. So we know that, say, salmon farms have had difficulties. What are the difficulties when you start concentrating algae into farms?
Well, I mean, algae are the main food and energy for aquatic ecosystems. So the carnivorous fish obviously don't eat the algae, but they eat the herbivorous fish, which do utilize algae as a food source.
Well, we have a tendency when we farm things to just drive everything else out and just, in other words, you don't want to have the herbivorous, are we going to be able to do this and have a more natural ecosystem rather than like farms which are just monoculture?
And that's, ideally we wanted to be able to research those topics and see how we can better integrate, cultivating algae and the technologies that are associated with that to, be less harmful to the environment that they would be growing in.
So you warned me it's a long answer, but what's the life cycle of algae and how does that fit in with production?
Life cycle analysis, as I see it for algae, would be that we could utilize it to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions for conventional fuels, and then after that you can actually burn it and power, create steam, turn a turbine, create electricity, and do it that way to charge electric vehicles as an alternative to more fossil fuel intensive ways of creating electricity. You could also use it to perform electrolysis, which is the process of breaking apart hydrogen molecules, so that way we can put those in a fuel cell to essentially fuel hydrogen cars. Correct.
So who's been doing this so far? Is it mostly an idea among scientists, or we do have some real world projects?
There are flex fuel vehicles that are available on the market, and Brazil has they have ethanol as their main source of transportation fuel, and they use sugarcane, but so there are markets where they can use biofuels as on a widespread scale, and also the aviation sectors. There's also a market for biojet fuel that would decrease the carbon intensity of our aviation fleets.
Yeah, my recollection is maybe a year ago, Richard Branson experimented with using some biofuels to fly his planes. Mm-hmm. Sound like a good idea?
It's less carbon intensive and we breathe cleaner, so that's I hope everything worked out.
So the big selling point with algae is not that it doesn't have CO2 emissions, it just has less, and that's not insignificant.
Right, it's not insignificant at all. They utilizing the algae, like I said, they're carbon neutral, so they extract it from the atmosphere, and then when they're burned, they release it, and then they'll extract it again, which is not the case with conventional fuels like coal. There's no way of really taking the emissions from coal and creating more coal or creating more oil or anything like that. So that's how algae is a better alternative to really bridge the gap between transportation technologies.
So I assume for the customer, they don't care. It's just all ethanol. If you replaced corn ethanol with algae ethanol, would customers give a hoot?
They should, because you get more bang for the buck. You get more bang per meter squared. So
when you say it's going to be the same ethanol going into your car, but there'd be more production from an algae farm.
Yes, exactly. The feedstocks will be not, I don't want to say bigger, but they'll be more available because you can get more energy out of algae than you can out of the conventional.
And presumably that would mean a lower price for ethanol than the more expensive corn.
Yeah, if we can get all the subsidies in the right place.
The price of corn might fall because we might have more of it.
Yeah, which is good for consumption, for our food.
So we got about 30 seconds left. Do you want to summarize using algae in fuel, good, bad, terrible?
I think algae, the use of algae for utilizing algae for fuel is actually more beneficial than than what we're doing now, which is utilizing coal for that. So you get more bang for the buck. It's less greenhouse gas emissions, and it's just overall better.
So we're going to come up with another good idea in about 30 seconds with Derek Satterlee. So our thanks to Sammy Boutros. Come back and join us, and we're going have another innovative idea from the master salesman himself, Derek Satterlee. See you in 30 seconds.
The nice thing about Better Breathers Club is we go in and there's other people sitting around with oxygen. It's almost a relief that everybody looks the same in the room. It's a funny thing to say, but it's a good feeling. Breathe California means having resources available to us that will help guide us and make our lives easier.
Welcome back. This is Breathe California TV. Most people associate smoking as the biggest consequence to our health, and certainly if you're a smoker or around one, there's nothing worse for your lung health, and for that matter, the biggest cause of heart problems is smoking. But in terms of your overall health risks, most of us are getting our lungs damaged by breathing unhealthy air. So for the last 15 minutes, we've heard from Sammy Boutros about one innovative technique. Now we're going to hear from Derek Satterlee about it. So how are you going to make anaerobic digestion sound more exciting so our audience sticks around?
Well, anaerobic digestion, essentially what it is it's just taking waste, whether it be waste from humans, inorganic or organic, or organic waste from animals, manures from feedlots or manure from dairy farms, any kind of inorganic, even organic waste that's produced by us. You take that and you pool it, and just all the enzymes, all the different organisms in there, they break it down.
So we don't need a bunch of artificial chemicals. This is natural process.
Yes, it's completely natural. And so the heat from all the organisms, they break it down and they produce methane. And right now, like in dairy farms and waste treatment plant, all that methane is just being released into the atmosphere. And methane is very, very potent. It's actually 22 times more potent than CO2. What you can do is you can capture that methane and you can burn it in a combustible engine to power a generator, which then creates electricity, which then you can use to power a treatment plant or homes, or even if you had excess electricity, you can put that back onto the grid.
So for our audience that doesn't want to find climate change to be a big issue, methane is a significant health risk, I assume.
Yeah, it's also actually, methane is very stinky. And so just like when you drive by a dairy farm
or a dump.
Or a dump, what you're smelling is methane, along with other gases, but methane is the stinkiest of them.
But part of what you're talking about is that gets cleaned up if you go through the digestion process.
Exactly, and so, the digestion releases the methane, and so what I'm talking about is capturing that methane and producing electricity from that.
And less people don't understand, maybe because I used to regulate landfills, the amount of methane gas coming off of them is terrible, the worst greenhouse gas emitters. But if our audience isn't worried about it, the stuff does explode. It's the reason methane's called natural gas.
Exactly. And so right now there are laws that require these dumps, these landfills, to pump out what is called leachate, and that's just all the gross liquid that accumulates at the bottom of the dump. Once it's lined with, it is lined. So you pump all that leachate out, and it's a very toxic concoction of chemicals. All the different decomposing waste turning to liquid, and that liquid gives off a very, very potent mix of gases, including methane, and so they have to do something with it, and so let's give it something. Let's give it a use.
Yeah, and you're proposing to grab these organic materials before they make it to a landfill.
Exactly, and so you have to do something with the manure and all the waste, the organic waste from the animals. And so right now, like I have a good example off the top of my head is the Humboldt Creamery up in Humboldt County in California, and
Ferndale, maybe?
yes, yeah, it is.
We have Humboldt County in common here.
Yeah. So they take all the not chemicals, but all the dairy, the unused dairy, all the organisms that they use to make cheeses and different types of milks and things like that, and all their waste goes and it's pooled in the back, and it's releasing all this methane from it decomposing, and all it's doing is going into the atmosphere. And then once it decomposes fully, they toss that out their back door, and they fertilize a field. Then these farmers lease that land, and they can grow nice crop, or they grow hay, which then feeds the cattle. And so, you can do the same thing. All you can do is you can tarp it, collect that methane instead of releasing it, and then produce electricity to then create a fully sustainable dairy. Which I feel, which then you're taking that energy off of the market, off of the grid to be used.
Yeah, and there's a lot of side effects. I mean, in a traditional feedlot dairy, what happened when it was raining?
Well, it gets very mucky, and then it runs off, and it
kills everything in the stream. The one
exactly
you're talking about is right on the edge of the Eel River.
Exactly. So you take all those adverse effects, all those externalities from not doing it, and you can really consolidate everything into one. You can produce energy, you can reduce waste, you can then take the concentrated nitrogen that you get from all the digested organic and inorganic material, and you can fertilize the field. I mean, you can sell that as a profit.
So there's a broader array of things. Sewage sludge, can you do that?
In my mind, why not? Why can't you use any type of organic material, especially sewage sludge? I mean, methane. That's what's stinky coming off of all that waste. Even if it isn't exactly methane, it's burnable. You can burn all that, and you can create energy. I mean, that's 100% renewable energy right there.
Pretty amazing stuff. So most of our audience is in Campbell and San Jose, and trash and sewage both ends up north end of San Jose and Alviso, where there's a sewage treatment plant and the Newbie Island landfill. Mm-hmm. Are both of those kinds of waste capable of being used for anaerobic digestion?
Well, like I said, there is a mandate that requires all these landfills to pump out leachate, which is the waste that's coming out, which is collecting at the bottom of the landfills. So you can use that. There is a lot of methane that can be taken off of that, for sure, and you can burn that as well.
So I probably didn't ask the question terribly well. All of us who have a chance to recycle have a chance to throw away yard waste as opposed to having it go out in our regular trash.
Yes.
I would assume that's a great source for what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly, because of the decomposition. Really, the decomposition of any organic material will produce methane along with other gases. And so, I mean, just like if you were to take your scraps and you put them in a composter and you were to open it up, there's a pretty ripe smell in there, and it's also creating heat. And so just think of that, but 100 times, when it comes to the material. You might have to mix it with some water to get a little moist, get a nice little lather going in there.
So hopefully we won't get into a full discussion. There's a reason I became a lawyer instead of a doctor, my inability to take too much of that. But California has a law that requires we recycle 75% of our garbage that goes into effect in a couple of years. Historically, the 50% requirement that went into place in 2000, we're generating yard waste, which most people think is going to compost, but there's no demand for this stuff.
Yeah, and that
It
would,
seems to me you're offering a solution.
yes, I'm offering a solution to a lot of problems. You know, when it comes to yard waste, you know, you can take that and take the methane from the decomposition of that organic material. You can take the decomposition of the human waste, or even the municipal human waste, which is organic material, and you can collect the methane from that. You can collect the methane from the decomposition and the digestion of the manure coming from pig, cattle, turkeys, chickens. You know, I mean, there's just a large amount of waste in this world, especially the United States. And so you take all of that waste and you consolidate it, and you can collect the waste from that. Then you create a more concentrated material that you can put back into the earth as a fertilizer to create the food that you're going to eat. And I mean, we're talking about a completely sustainable system here, and then creating electricity from
And
that.
it's all done in the same spot when you've got a feedlot or something else.
Exactly. So you can do that at a feedlot. You can do it for a municipal waste facility. You have the city of Santa Clara, or the city of Palo Alto, who is a municipal utility. They're collecting collecting payment for electricity. Well, why can't they make their own electricity? From waste that the city is getting.
In fact, your idea is so good. The city of Palo Alto has that out to bid, to take their sewage sludge and their compost, because there isn't enough demand for the yard waste when it comes in, and so they think they can make usable energy out of it.
I'm gonna have to get my cut then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure yours is the original idea. So we spent 10 minutes where everybody in the audience is all excited and ready to go, but there's got to be barriers, there's problems, or we would have had it.
Oh,
everywhere.
there's so many different barriers. When it comes to this subject, there's 50 different states, which means that there's 50 different laws. Specifically in California, you have a lot of issues with with permitting. There's 35 districts within the.
And we're going to have to live with there being a lot of problems because we're getting a wrap it up signal. So Derek, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you very much. See you next week on Breathe California TV.